Good afternoon. Glad to see you here. Glad you returned after lunch. Our first speaker this afternoon is a man named Keval, who is from Duke Fuquay, or from the website it says, Keval has been credited with creating products like GotoAID, a first in our aid and disaster preparedness system, and now INRFOOD, a revolutionary means to identifying the ingredients in food and the corresponding health effects of these ingredients. 3 times a year, he travels to developing countries and does volunteer work with local governments and with charity organizations for the purpose of educating locals about improving their health conditions. His newest project, INRFOOD, forms the basis for his talk, so join me in welcoming Kevin.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everybody enjoyed lunch, which is going to be perfect for my talk now. So can anybody guess what the most starving nation in the world is? Most people usually think of Ethiopia, Somalia, probably some third world country in South America or Africa or Asia. It's actually the United States. What's really interesting is the United States is one of the most starving nations in the world based on nutrition. We've got so much abundance of food in the US, however, the biggest problem is nutritionally, we're deprived, big time. So I guarantee many of you, even though you've eaten lunch today, you probably are starving nutritionally today. Thing is, this wasn't the case. 30 years ago, food was more local and fresh. Today, it's really become more chemistry than biology. So where did this happen? What went wrong? Why are we at the state we are today? Well, we have to go back to our ancestors, the hunting and gathering times. You know, at that time, food was scarce. There was no preservation of food or anything like that. Finding fat, calories, sugar really meant survival at that time. Well, I'll give you an example. Those instincts are still in us today. We actually can sense calories. Now, how many of you in this audience look at this bowl of salad and your mouths start watering? Probably not very many. Now, if I show you a nice juicy burger, it changes. And if you don't believe me, if you're out this weekend and you're actually checking something out, when you're eating even a salad, you don't really sense the calories in there, but when you start putting in cheese and croutons and salad dressing, things like that, your mouths will actually start watering because our bodies can actually sense calories in food. Now, let's go back to the age of discovery, basically. There was a time when spices were more sought after than gold. The reason for that, there was really no preservation or anything at the time, so you needed to add taste and flavor to things, and that causes expeditions and stuff to go and try and find the spices. A great example, obviously, is Christopher Columbus. And when he sailed the ocean blue in 1492, came to the New World, he was on a mission. He was obviously there to prove that the world was actually round. The other thing he was looking to do is he was on a hunt to go to India and Asia to try and find spices. Ended up landing in the New World, or America. And at this time, one interesting side fact is that while he was over here, at the time, poblanos, habaneros, and stuff were actually called chilies for thousands of years. He came over, and he was actually looking for black pepper, and he ended up naming, when he saw poblanos and stuff, he named everything pepper, and that's actually where the word comes from. That's why I call them chili peppers. But one other thing he did was, other than naming a whole bunch of things, he ended up going back to Europe, and he brought a lot of things from the New World, and one of those things was corn. Now, corn is pretty amazing. It's pretty hardy. It can grow in multiple different climates and temperatures, and it doesn't require a whole lot to sustain corn. So he brought corn to Europe. And when he brought corn over there, it really became the staple food for a lot of poor people. So it was more like street food. And there were entire groups of people that actually just ate corn for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The interesting thing is, in the New World, Native Americans also ate a lot of corn. It was a major staple diet as well. But at the time here, what happened with corn, Native Americans actually treated with a lime substance. And what that did was actually released niacin from the corn. So niacin is actually trapped within corn, and what happens is if you don't treat it, the niacin doesn't get out. And so in the Far East, or Eastern Europe, there was word of this group of people that basically would come out and they were scared of daylight or sunlight. They had scaly skin. It It would glisten in the light. They had a thirst for blood. They also were very angry and violent, and they had blood sores and things like that. And they had an appetite for blood. And if you can guess who those people were, maybe not these guys, but generally that's how actually vampires came about. But it wasn't their fault. It was basically because they were relying on corn the entire time, and the idea of nutrition and vitamins wasn't really known at the time. They didn't realize that they were actually sustained to a disease called pellagra, which is basically the lack of niacin. So what happened? How do we go from food to what we call today food stuff? It's not really food, but we think of it as food. Well, you got to look at where the tide actually shifted. Let me go back. There's actually 4 major reasons. 5, technically. I'll get to the 5th one in a second. But it was really industrialization, transportation, amazing marketing, and obviously efficiency. The whole idea is that you can walk to a grocery store now and you can pick up bananas, and they don't even grow here. You can also get some type of pastry or something that's made in the middle of the country, and it's shipped all the way over here, and you can still access it. The thing is, the driving motive for this whole, what we call basically food stuff or chemistry of food was one thing: it's money. If you can make something cheaper, easier, faster, that's the way to do it. Now, you may be surprised to know that these 10 corporations actually control almost every brand that you know. They have some arms in the healthcare space, some arms in the food space, and it's all mixed in here. One of the most amazing things is that these 10 companies, and others like them, are really just concerned about the profit, the bottom line. What they want to do is they want to use, instead of using real apples, to use some type of chemical that can make it taste like an apple. And they're not really concerned about our nutrition. They're concerned about selling you more. So if something smells good, looks good, tastes good, we as a consumer purchase it, especially if it has nice packaging and all that kind of stuff. The thing is, what we need to do is start asking questions. Well, some of the things that I'd like to kind of give you examples of is these particular ingredients. Brominated vegetable oil is found in many soft drinks. It's like an emulsifying agent. It's also the main ingredient of flame retardant. That's actually found in our food. Titanium dioxide is actually used as a substance for salad dressings. It's also in paint thinner. Beaver anal gland juice, and if you don't believe me, there's a 60-minute special on this company in New Jersey that actually produces this stuff, is actually a lot of vanilla and raspberry flavor that's out there, artificial. L-cysteine, which is a common dough conditioner that's found in pastries, some of the microwavable pizzas and stuff that you may buy. The good news is that it used to be made from human hair, actually imported from China. Now, it's actually made from duck feathers. And the last thing is ammonia gas baths. They are used to actually kill microbes on a lot of meats, but the FDA doesn't require you to actually write it on the label. One of my favorites is diacetyl. I used to work in a hospital, and everybody used to eat microwavable popcorn. I'm sure you all have. If you ever look at a microwavable popcorn box, like Pop Secret or something, you'll notice on the bottom in big letters they write, does not contain diacetyl. Certain popcorn manufacturers still use diacetyl. Diacetyl is a chemical that actually makes artificial butter flavor. And what ended up happening is that the people that make diacetyl in the factories for this artificial butter flavoring actually wear gas masks. You know what happens when you pop popcorn, and you get that smell. There was actually a gentleman in Philadelphia who is now suing the diacetyl manufacturers because he has lung cancer. And he claims it was because he loved the smell of butter popcorn. He popped the popcorn and then he'd inhale all the smoke or the smell. There's still more studies going on it. Maybe in a few years we'll find out if this stuff is actually true. But so far, the Journal of American Medical Science last year actually found out that it does significantly damage the immune system. It's linked to high cholesterol, sperm damage, infertility, ADHD, and ADD, to name a few. And these are just a few chemicals. So, give you an idea, what happens when you have 2 hydrogens and an oxygen? By themselves, they're just gases. Together, you form an entire new compound, water. In our brains, there was a psychiatrist at Harvard University who actually measured that in our brains, we have over 10 to the trillionth amount of electrochemical configurations. And to give you an idea, that equals more cubic feet than the entire universe. So just to give you an idea of how many different chemical interactions are actually going on in our brain. And you can just imagine some of these chemicals might actually have adverse effects towards them. So what do we do? Right? That's like the biggest questions. Is this a never-ending battle? Are we losing? You know, what's going on here? Well, the good news is that things are actually changing now. People are actually, you know, kind of awakening and asking questions, which is something that never happened before. People are starting to ask, where does their food come from? You know, what's in it? How is it made? Who made it? You know, why does this thing have such a shelf life? And how come I need a PhD in biochemistry to understand what the ingredients are in the food? And this stuff is great. Yesterday actually, Pepsi announced that they're removing brominated vegetable oil from Gatorade. They're not saying it's due to any health concerns, but the other news that was kind of buried down there is that 250,000 people signed a petition saying they want to eliminate brominated vegetable oil. So it's pretty crazy stuff. So what can you guys do? Well, it's pretty simple. Most people don't realize it, but every time that you guys go to a grocery store, farmer's market, or anywhere, you take your dollar and you vote. You vote for exactly what you want to buy. So if you go out there and you purchase, you know, products that are more sustainable, that are better for the environment, that are more importantly better for you, then you're actually going to make a difference. Because just imagine this. Imagine if tomorrow we all decided that we're not going to consume high fructose corn syrup, right? And let's say we're not going to purchase, you know, a specific beverage because it has high fructose corn syrup in it. Those food manufacturers, although, you know, their main goal is money, that's where you're going to hit them in the pocketbook because they're also paying attention to exactly demand consumption of their products. So if all of a sudden they found out that in Raleigh that a specific, you know, say soft drink decided, you know, had about a 25% decrease in sales, they're going to send an army out here to find out what the heck is going on. Is there a competitor? Is their pricing structure not right? Are they not advertising correctly? Are they not reaching the right demographic? What happened, right? And if they find out that you all are not buying it because of the fact that it has high fructose corn syrup, then they're going to change their formula. And the perfect example is yesterday when they removed, you know, brominated vegetable oil. They realized that Gatorade consumers are a healthier consumer. And so they're leaving it in Mountain Dew and some of their other beverages, but they're taking out of the ones because of consumer demand. It's not for any other reason that they may say, but that's the core reason. People actually stood up and did something. And it takes very, very little for us to do. It's just, you know, cohesive choice with your money, what you decide to buy and when you decide to buy it. So I'll leave you guys with this. Hippocrates, who's the, you know, father of medicine, actually said this: "Let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food," which is a telling thing. Now, what I've tried to do on my behalf is I used to practice medicine, and my whole vision was really, you know, to make people healthier. That's why I ended up becoming a doctor. The problem is that, you know, on my way through medical school or just pre-med, I decided that this just may not be the right thing for me. I felt like we're living in a real sick care environment, and that's what I was treating. I'd had patients that I was working with who their answer to everything was, "Oh, just give me some Lipitor or Crestor if the cholesterol was high." Or, for example, if, you know, something more serious and you try and advise them of it, they believe that 5 years down the road, there's going to be some new medical, you know, technology that's going to come out. It's going to save everything. Unfortunately, you know, it's a pipe dream. It's just not going to happen. The thing is, if people just kind of understood, you know, more preventive medicine and had that information, then, you know, this world would be a lot better place. So I decided to actually leave medicine and not pursue, you know, a dream that I've had since I was a little kid and actually build a healthcare technology company that would actually go out and give people the right information that they've never had. And I kind of compare it to cigarette smoking as well. If you think about it, 30, 40 years ago, cigarette smoking was like the in thing to do, right? It was a cool thing to do. Everybody was doing it. No one ever said it was bad for you. Well, fast forward 30 years later, now we know all the studies. We know about secondhand smoke. We know how it affects pregnant women, and so on and so forth. Well, now we're more educated, right? You see a lot less people smoking. You know, it's almost become taboo now. The same thing, I believe, is going to happen with food in about 25 to 30 years. The whole idea that these chemicals and these additives are in here, what are they actually doing to us? And the problem is, in 30 years, it may be too late for a lot of us if we don't make the actions right now. And we have that power. So that's the amazing thing. So I kind of started this company called INRFOOD, and the whole idea behind that is to actually find out what the ingredients are in our food, not the nutrition facts, not if something is 0 calorie or 0 sugar. Because although that's important, you know, food manufacturers can alter food to make it 0 calories or 0 sugar or 0 fat. Something can be low fat yet be jacked up with tons of sugar. The whole idea is, what kind of sugar is it? What kind of fat? What kind of ingredients are being put in there to alter those numbers? It's not just a numbers game. You know, you got to understand what it's actually composed of. to understand that, you got to understand the core functionality of food, which are the ingredients. And that's what we're all about. So check us out at INRFOOD. Follow us on Facebook. And, thank you very much.